Hello, and welcome to the Delusional Boyfriend Book Club, where if waiting for someone to love you back for 10 years is wrong, I don't want to be right. My name is Courtney, and I'll be your host, and today we're talking about Melting Point, which is our BL Manhwa of the month. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and if you're listening on a podcast app, hit auto-download, so every time we drop an episode, it will be automatically delivered to your library. Every Thursday, we drop a BL and romance episode, and every Tuesday, me and my husband drop a Shonen Simp episode, where we ship all the characters from One Piece. Thank you so much for listening. And to jump right into Melting Point, we have our tropes this week of sports romance, second chance romance, hockey romance, rivals romance, friends to lovers romance, and a little bit of a coworker romance because one of our characters ends up being a marketing agent for a company that the other character is doing an advertisement with. So it's not exactly an office romance, but there definitely is some co-working situations going on here. I absolutely love this story. Just as a teaser, I give this a 10 out of 10. There are 25 episodes, and you can find this story on Legend. It was written by Pibby, and the last episode dropped in November 2025. That was the season finale of season 1. And when I was approaching the last episode available, I didn't know that there was going to be a season 2. And I was dying that the series was going to be over so quickly. But rest assured, the author has teased that 2026 in the summer, we will be getting the second season. So I'm really excited to have this come back to life and start posting again. It posts every 5th, 15th, and 25th. So if you're listening to this, go check and see if the second season has dropped yet. But as of March 2026, we're still waiting for that second season. I absolutely love this story. Just to jump right into it, our main characters are going to be Bak Eunsun and Ryu Ian. So Ian and Eunsun are friends from high school. Eunsun is the son of a hockey coach, and he was the best in his hockey league until Ian moved to town. When Ian moved from Canada to Korea, his freshman year of high school, he didn't know how to play hockey, and Eunsun is the person who took him under his wing and taught him everything he needed to know. Meanwhile, Eunsun's father, who's the coach, takes a better liking to Ian than he does to his own son. Now, this is where the whole rival conflict kind of comes from, is not so much they're on a team sport together, so they have to work together as a team, but as the dad starts to favor this other kid instead of his own son, it really gets underneath our main character Eunsun's skin. So this character, Ian, who is this hot, half Korean, half Canadian, and if that reminds you of heated rivalry, it should. That's definitely why I chose this story for this month, because I thought these all paired really well together. Our other stories are Pucking Around, which is why I choose romance, and Yuri on Ice. So the whole month is kind of Spice on Ice themed. Make sure you check out those other episodes if you haven't yet. But our main character, Ian, who's moved back from Canada, is very tall, very beefy, like he's very built, very cut, and he moved away to Canada unexpectedly, leaving his friend Eunsun in the lurch. And because Eunsun was already developing this jealousy because of his dad's favoritism of Ian, this started a real resentment towards Ian that would last the next 10 years until Ian shows back up from Canada in Korea. And Ian is in Korea to join the National League so that he can go to the Olympics, and he has turned out to be the rising star that Korea always wanted. And the fact that he decided to play for them for the Olympics instead of playing for Canada is a big deal. So all of these advertisement agencies are looking to get him to sign a deal, and our main character Eunsun is working for an advertisement agency, and they're pitching to Ian why he should join their company for an ad campaign. And Ian has specifically entertained this company as his first sponsorship company because he knows that the ad manager is going to be his old friend Eunsun. Right off the bat, you can tell that there's some tension and some resentment going on between these two. And in the meeting, that's where our first episode takes place, is in this meeting where Ian makes it very clear that they have a history and all of the coworkers around them have no idea what's going on or what all this tension is about. I thought this setup was so perfect, and it sets the stage for the pacing of season 1 to be absolutely perfect. Like, when we get into this first episode and we immediately know that these two have it out for each other and also have the spark of chemistry between each other, you are ready to figure out what's going on in their past. And the author really sprinkles in these moments where we get flashbacks to their past and also where we get conversation and dialogue between the two of them of what happened. The author sprinkles it in really so that you're still left curious what the full story is, but you have enough information to understand what's going on. So Ian decides that he wants in this meeting to fuck with Unsun by basically rejecting the offer from the company and embarrassing Unsun in front of everybody. And that's where you can tell he is harboring some hurt from Unsun in his heart and wants to get even with him. As soon as he leaves that meeting after rejecting him, he sends the company an offer for a better deal on the company's part than they had originally even negotiated. And in this way, he salvages the partnership while still having gotten the upper hand on Unsun in this situation. Unsun gets the news from his company that Ian will work with them, but only under the condition that Unsun manages him and works basically as his handler on all of the sets and all of the campaigns. Immediately, Unsun wants to reject this and says no to the condition. And his company basically says, you can't ruin this deal for the company. You work for us. And he goes to the hockey rink where Ian is practicing and he confronts him and says, I'm not going to be your handler. I know you hate me. I know I hate you. We have this unresolved issue between us. And we learn later on that the issue is that Unsun had trained Ian to, in Korea, you're called a hube and a sunbae. And as the older person, 2 years older, Unsun had put a lot of effort and invested a lot of time into Ian's training with the hopes that he would stay on the team and better the team and make their hockey program the greatest in Korea. But instead, Ian moves away and doesn't even tell Unsun that he's moving away or why he's moving away. And that really hurt his feelings. So when he approaches him at the ice rink, without having to go into all of this, he says, I don't want to be your handler and I'd rather quit than take this campaign with you. So good luck with whoever else is going to take my position. I'm out of here. And Ian says, stop. You can't quit your job. I'll make it an even juicier deal. I will personally train your brother, who I know has been injured to sit out of hockey and couldn't join the National Korean League. I will train him every week, twice a week for 2 hours a training session in order to get him recovered from his injury and on the national team. And Unsun is basically like, why would you do that for me? Why do you want to work with me so bad? And Ian says, it's because hockey. You might have quit 10 years ago, but hockey just as well as I do, and you were better than I was. And I want somebody who understands the sport just as well as I do to work with. And that's a shallow excuse, and you can tell that he definitely wants to be around Unsun, and that is the real reason, but he can't come out and say that just yet. So Unsun cannot refuse this deal. He wants to help his own brother out. His brother is the most important person in his life. We find out that his dad has passed away, and the last time he saw Ian was when Ian traveled back to Korea for that funeral. So his dad was both of their coaches and actually started being very abusive to his own sons because they couldn't compare to Ian. But Ian had enough respect for him to show back up at his funeral, and they actually got in a fist fight during the funeral. So very intense situation, and knowing that his brother is so important to him and that he won't be able to refuse this offer, Ian looks to be a little bit manipulative at the beginning of the story, but he's a green flag character just through and through. All spoilers here. Ian is a green flag, and he's only manipulating this situation because he knows that there's something holding Unsun back, obviously, which caused him to quit hockey, but is also keeping him from re-engaging in this friendship, and it has to do with his dad. So going at this family angle is really smart of Ian, and it does trap Unsun into confronting their situationship kind of head on. And at this point in Unsun's mind, it's just a friendship that went sour. But you can tell for Ian, it was always something. It's also convenient timing because Unsun has been recently divorced from a woman. And the authors made it really clear that Unsun is straight and this is his bi-awakening. So that's another trope going on here, is a bi-awakening. And he really is having a hard time seeing any of the hints that Ian is laying down, but Ian is being pretty clear about it from the get-go. And we see that as soon as they start working together, Ian is finding any excuse to brush up against this man and get close to him. And on their like second or third photo shoot ice for this like hockey promo, I think that the company that Unsun is supposed to be working for is like Asics, a tennis shoe company, or Adidas, something like that. So he asks him to come out and get the shot with him. Unsun does not want to do this, but also doesn't want to look unprofessional in front of all of his coworkers. So he gets on the skates and he gets out to the ice and immediately has a panic attack so bad that he faints into the arms of Ian. And when Ian and Unsun first saw each other, it was in a bathroom before their whole initial meeting. And Unsun was taking medication and Ian made fun of him for it. And at this moment, we realized that medication is anxiety medication for chronic panic attacks. Now he has fallen down on the ice, he's hyperventilating, and all Ian can do is hold him. And he sees that he's pushed him too far with goading him on to the ice. And as he has this panic attack, he's sobbing into Ian's arms, and Ian hugs him to his chest. And you see him black out, and then he wakes up in the infirmary, and he's surrounded by his coworkers, totally embarrassed. And his coworkers say, don't worry about it. We got enough shots for the day. We rescheduled the on ice portion, but you should say thank you to Ian. He carried you all the way here to the infirmary like a princess. And he seemed really broken up. Like he felt terrible that you had this panic attack. So Unsun goes out to the ice and sees that Ian is sitting down on the ice, just head in his hands, distraught. And he apologizes and says, I'm sorry I made a scene, but I told you I can't get back on the ice. I hate hockey now. And Ian says, I can't believe you hate hockey this much, and it's all because of me. And Unsun says, it's not because of you. And Ian replies, when you were passing out, you screamed at me if I only hadn't come back. And you made it seem like it's my fault that you hate hockey. And Unsun explains that what he meant was if Ian had never shown up in his life, he could have always considered himself to be number one, and number one in his dad's heart, as well as number one on the ice. But because Ian showed up, he had to confront the reality that he's not the best. And being second in your dad's heart and second on the team when you're so used to being captain and you're used to being the best is really hard. But he makes it clear he doesn't hold that against Ian, and it's his own shit and his own baggage to deal with, which I thought was really attractive in this character and very mature. And I appreciated that the writer didn't drag on this jealousy and this resentment, but instead let the characters confront it and move past it. And even though those feelings towards his father will continue to haunt Unsun, at least it's out in the open that he knows and acknowledges it's not fair to project that anger onto Ian. So I really loved how that was all written. And as they're sitting there on the ice, he looks at Ian and says, what is all over your shirt? And Ian says, oh, your tears and your spit, your slobber. You slobbered all over me when you were having a panic attack. And Unsun is so embarrassed. He's, give me the shirt, I'll wash it, I'll get you something else to wear. That's so gross, I'm sorry. And Ian grabs the shirt and puts it in his mouth and starts chewing on the part that is stained by his tears and his slobber. And it completely grosses out Unsun, and also gives him this fluttering that he doesn't quite understand yet, because in Korea it's called an indirect kiss, and it's very clear and unusual that one man would be so okay with putting another man's spit in his mouth. It's very intimate, and I absolutely love this moment. I took screenshots of this moment, and later on it comes back up where Ian put something in his mouth that Unsun had already had in his mouth. And Unsun says, you're really weird about spit, man. And it just made me think, yeah, when you're in love with someone, you are weird about spit. You want to be inside their body, and it doesn't matter what fluid it is. You're all ready to swap it. So I really like that Ian from this moment is pushing this intimacy because he can't help himself. He is kind of obsessed with Unsun. He wants him on his campaign. He wants him by his side on the ice. He wants his spit in his mouth. And if he's going to have a panic attack, he's going to hold him close to his chest and make everything all better. So this is the catalyst for their whole relationship kind of blooming, is this safety and security that Unsun felt when he was having the panic attack, and also this finally getting a foot in the door for Ian, where he's moving past this resentment of the last 10 years that Unsun has held against him and finding an opening into his heart. As the story unfolds, we see a lot of moments where the two are on set together for different photo shoots to support Unsun's company, while Ian is blowing up in Korea and becoming one of the top celebrities. And in those moments, we start to get more brushing up on each other. And I would say this is definitely a slow burn. So as the story unfolds, we have another chapter of Unsun's life being brought up and confronted, which is his ex-wife. She calls him and he goes to meet her for dinner, where she explains that she's engaged to her new boyfriend and she's ready to get his wedding ring back. It's been long enough and she knows she's not going to change her mind. This kind of sends Unsun into a spiral. More so, it seems, not because he still loves her, but because he's a little bit shocked at the timing and he's not sure where his life is headed in. And he goes out onto the street without his medication and starts to have a panic attack. And who shows up to his rescue again but Ian? It's very good timing, and you can get the sense that Ian is maybe following him or stalking him a little bit. And he tells Unsun later that anytime he wants to find him, all he has to do is call his company and say, I need to urgently get a hold of Unsun for the campaign. And they'll tell him immediately where he's at. So he gets to the street and sees that Unsun is on the ground having a panic attack, and he holds him to his chest again. And this is where we see this reoccurring storyline that every time Unsun is having a panic attack, Ian is his therapy, and all he needs is to be hugged by Ian to feel better. So once he calms down, he says, okay, we're going to a pharmacy. We're going to get you your medication. I'm so sorry that you're here alone, but worry not. I'm here now. They get to the pharmacy to get the medication, and Unsun is so embarrassed. You don't have to do this for me. I'm a grown man. I think he's probably 31 or 32, and Ian is about 28 years old. So it is cute that they're relying on each other so much, especially seeing as they're both such full-grown, mature adults. And once they can't get the medication, Ian says, okay, if I can't get this over the counter for you, I am going to take you back to a hotel and give you some other therapy so that you can feel better. And Unsun is, okay, what does that mean? They get back to the hotel and Ian draws him a bath. And he says, you don't need to draw me a bath. You're my client. I'm so sorry I've stressed you out. And Ian says, if you're stressed out, I'm stressed out. So the best way for me to feel better as your client is for you to let me take care of you. And Unsun says, I can't argue with that. So Ian draws him the bath. And as he's getting undressed, you've got to leave the room, and you expect Ian, as a more possessive and obsessive Manhwa top, to stay in the room and push his boundaries. But instead, he averts his eyes and he leaves very respectfully. And Unsun gets his bath with his bath salts that Ian provided for him. And then when he's done, he comes out and Ian says, it's time for me to give you a massage. If we relax all of your muscles, you'll stop having these panic attacks. So he does, and he's really good at giving massages, and he makes him feel all better. And once they're done, Unsun realizes how close Ian is to him, and he's rubbing up on him. And as he sits up, he sees that he has an erection. And he's pretty embarrassed by this, tries to cover it, and Ian says, let me help you. And Unsun does not refuse. He's a little bit freaked out, but since they've already been having this like physical massage, she just goes with it and uses the excuse that he's caught up in the moment, which you see a lot in BLs, and it's a very convenient excuse. As he's finishing him off, Ian says something super weird, which is, go ahead and come. I know this isn't the first time you've had a handy from a man. Unsun is so surprised, and us as viewers are shook because Unsun seems to be straight an ex-wife. And then Unsun has a flashback to the locker room in high school and fooling around with a different guy. So when this hand job is over, having just heard him say this, Ian goes to the bathroom to clean up, and Unsun gets dressed and runs out of the room. And the next day you see him at lunch with a guy from their hockey team from high school, and he's talking to him. Do you think anyone saw us back in the day? And his friend goes, are you still hung up on that? Do you feel that weird about it, that guilty about it? Should we not have done that? And Unsun says, no, we were just teenagers. We were just curious. There's no big deal that we experimented, but do you think anyone saw us? Because I was reminded of the incident, and I'm just hoping that Nobody was watching. And the guy who he experimented with says, no, I don't think anyone was there. We're probably safe. So as the audience, we get the idea that there's definitely a peeping Tom, and his name was Ian. And Ian, by the end of this season, we still don't have his side of the story, how he knows this happened, how he was watching, where he was at, how he felt during this time. But I have a feeling that is the catalyst for why he moved back to Canada, because he was so heartbroken. And I have a feeling that in season 2, we're going to get a lot more of that. So from this incident, we have Eunsun avoiding Ian, and Ian is not having it. He's pissed off. He wants to be working along Eunsun this whole time. So he makes an excuse to show up where Eunsun is, and Eunsun's little brother is taking lessons from Ian. So in order to pick up his brother from these lessons at the rink, he does have to confront him. And Ian, when he sees Eunsun, takes that opportunity to be like, hey, you can't avoid me anymore. Let's make a plan to meet up again. And his little brother does this weird thing where he asks to try Ian's protein drink because he wants to be an athlete just like him. And Ian gives it to him. And then his little brother starts coughing, and Eunsun goes to wipe his brother's face with a handkerchief, and Ian says, don't worry, I'll do it. And he gives him a towel and steals Eunsun's handkerchief. He goes back to the hotel and he jerks off with the handkerchief. It is so sexy and hot and depraved and desperate, and I just fucking loved it. And so we've got this like continuing theme of Ian not being able to fully get Eunsun to realize how interested he is in him until they go out drinking one night. And Eunsun is lonely and tries to get Ian not to leave him in a hotel room. He's, please just stay with me. There's a moment where Eunsun is getting drunk with his coworkers, and Ian shows up surprisingly and says, oh, I'll take him home. Don't worry, I'll get him back to his house. And when he gets him back to his house, he scrapes his hand as he's getting him through the doorway, and he puts him to bed. He sticks his finger in his mouth and he's licked the blood off. It is so depraved and creepy. And all of those moments with Ian are my favorite. And he's definitely a green flag top, but when he has those little creepy, freaky moments, in how season 2 is maybe going to heat up even further. And because it's such a slow burn, when you get those tiny little hints at spice, it really starts to build for you. So then we have another time where Eunsun is getting drunk and he's with Ian, and Ian takes him back to their room, and he's, okay, you're drunk, I'm gonna lay you down to bed, I'll get a different room, don't worry about it. And Eunsun is very forward. He's, I don't want to be alone, I need you to stay with me. And Ian says, I don't know if this is a test or what, but I'm not going to take advantage of you while you've been drinking. And Eunsun says, I'm going to do whatever I have to make you stay. And that's when he offers to jerk off Ian. So we have this tit for tat hand job thing happening. And after that, Ian actually feels really bad. Like he's taken advantage of Eunsun, and he avoids Eunsun, just like Eunsun had earlier avoided Ian. And Eunsun isn't embarrassed anymore. He doesn't want to have this awkward professional relationship where they're avoiding each other, and they seem to be so attracted to each other that he just wants to confront it. So he goes to see him and he says, listen, I don't regret what we did together. I think it's fine. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not married anymore. Me and my wife are really over, and I don't think you need to be avoiding me. So if you want, we can stop working together, or we can just quit getting into situations where we're around each other and tempted to go further than we should. And Ian says, no, I don't want that. I want to know that you don't regret what we're doing and that you're not going to hate me. And Eunsun reassures him that he's not going to. And then soon after that, we have the first blowjob scene. And as we're like nearing the end of the series, the two start to become much more aware of their feelings and aren't sure how they can express that, while Ian is so in the spotlight and Eunsun is on the hook with his company for keeping this professional. So Ian gets some tickets to a concert, and he asks Eunsun to go with him basically as his date, and Eunsun knows that he can't deny him and that they can also use the ruse of it being a work event so that nobody is suspecting them dating. But right at that moment, Ian's bestie from America named Emma shows up into the picture. And Emma sparks this jealousy with Unsun, and Unsun calls off the concert together and says, just take that pretty girl. It would make a way better optic for you than me. And if we get caught with paparazzi or whatever, they might start rumors, but this beautiful half Korean model from Canada is the perfect person for you to be going to events with. So just do that. Forget about me. Ian, of course, does not take this and shows up where Unsun is again, which is at a field, like a soccer field where he's doing an event. And he hangs out with him on the field, and they talk a little bit about his relationship with that girl. And he makes it very clear that they are just friends, and that for him, he's only ever friends with women. And I think that is the author's way of saying Ian is gay through and through, and he's also never had a relationship with anybody else. So they leave from that situation and end up soaking wet in the rain, which was super romantic. And then they decide to go on a real date together, and they end up going camping. And when they pitch the tent and get settled in, they decide that they want to go all the way and have sex, but that they don't want to do it at the campgrounds. So we get that true romantic date, and then they pack up the tent and head over to a hotel where Ian assumes he will be the top. And we have this funny moment. I want to have sex with you. When can we do it? And Unsun says, what makes you think you're going to have sex with me? And Ian says, if I let you be the one fucking me, can we do it even faster? And I love that that conversation about switching, because I feel like it's much more common for gay couples to be verse or switch than for them to just be like stereotypically a top or a bottom like they are in BL. And I love that this character, even though he's way taller than Unsun and has a huge dick, that he is fine with the idea of Unsun fucking him as long as they can be together in the most intimate way possible. That was so cute. So they end up back at the hotel, and Unsun showers and gets ready. And as soon as he opens the door, Ian is standing right outside the door. He says, what are you doing? That's like, why have you been standing here the whole time? And Ian says, yeah, I was making sure that you didn't run away and change your mind. And Unsun says, nope, I haven't. We don't have any condoms though. And I haven't had sex with anyone other than my wife. And we've been divorced a year. I'm totally clean. I know you're a virgin because you suck at kissing, and everything we've done so far was your first. So I'm sure that you don't have anything you could transmit to me. And they both decide to raw dog it. And then we have the spiciest sex scene, which was so good. The art in this story is immaculate. I absolutely love this author. And they do have one other story, and I didn't look up what it was, but it's not full color. This is a full color. And I would say everything is absolutely gorgeous. I would read 1 billion spicy chapters of this, and we didn't even get a full sex scene till chapter 25, and before that we had 2 hand jobs and a blow job. So even without the spicy scenes, I would say this is a very compelling story, and the art does a lot of that heavy lifting because both characters are absolutely gorgeous. So they hook up. This is like their final sex scene for the season. The next day they end up at this hockey rink, and he gives a lesson to Unsun, and we see that he is getting comfortable back on the ice, and they're going to be able to play hockey together, probably not in a professional capacity, but at least as best friends and as lovers and as people who bonded over this initially. The other thing I forgot to mention during this episode is Ian's tattoo, and it's something that he's been hiding from Unsun the entire time until this final sex scene. But we have seen that when he's on the ice before a game, he will touch his side and say a little prayer. And everyone thinks that this is like a prayer to stay safe and not get injured during the game. But as they have that final sex scene, he shows the tattoo to Unsun, and it's a snow-covered mountaintop, which is what Unsun's name means. Bak Unsun means silver-capped mountaintop. And so Unsun is, you're crazy. You got a tattoo for me? And Ian says, yes, I did. I was sure that you were my destiny. You are like a god to me. So every time I touch it and say a prayer, I am saying a prayer to my God. And I always knew that I would be able to get you. Even when you got married, even when I moved away, I never gave up on this idea. And then we also find out that he had stolen this hockey puck from Unsan. And when he was in Canada, he got it signed by his favorite hockey player and he returns that. And we see that for 10 years. This has always been his long game. And as the number one champion and as a winner, he has never considered quitting and he has never considered giving up on his mission. And he's finally sealing the deal and winning the game. And he's getting the gold medal, first place he always wanted, which is the man of his dreams. So going into season 2, I think we're going to have a lot more sex scenes. We're also obviously going to have some kind of confrontation with the coming out. There is already a guy in the media who is pushing at them and hinting that he understands what the relationship is. And with Korea being a not very progressive, socially progressive country in this way as it comes to gay rights, we know that's going to be a big conflict. We also know that we're going to have to confront whatever happened that made Ian move away. And although Unsun's hurt over his own father's kind of betrayal and favoritism of Ian is being resolved in his own mind, whatever pissed Ian off enough to get him to move away is not resolved yet. And whether that is Unsun quitting or Unsun being with another man or whatever it is, whatever the deal was with Ian, he's going to have to revisit that. So I think we're going to get a bunch of flashbacks of them in high school, which is cute. And clearly the author, I love them for this, has stated in their author's note, there's not going to be any spicy scenes while they're minors. And I adore that because a lot of authors, especially in second chance romances, will do sex scenes of them from when they're in high school. And I, for one, definitely was active in high school in that way, but I don't appreciate it as a 30-year-old when I'm reading it. I don't like to see it be depicted. I don't like to read it in romance novels. I just don't like it. I don't even like it in TV. I didn't watch Euphoria. I don't give a fuck. You kids do whatever the fuck you're going to do, but I do not need to. So I like that the author stated very clearly, when we do the flashbacks, that's not what it's about. Clearly, Ian is a virgin, so nothing happened between them in high school. Maybe they kissed, but I doubt it. So I think we're going to just get more information on their history together. And then I think we're going to get this plot line where Unsun starts to play hockey again.Maybe they have a little league together. Maybe they just practice twice a week with Unsun's little brother. I don't know, but I'm excited to see them on the hockey ice together, in the rink together, because that one little scene we did get where he's finally starting to pick back up his skates and his skills was really cute for Unsun. So with all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed this story. And my favorite part of this whole show is picking my delusional boyfriend. And I bet you guys can guess who it's going to be. I absolutely fucking loved Ian. He is crazy enough and obsessed enough to get a tattoo for his man when his man hates him and he has to wait 10 years to earn his affection. I also love that he started his entire career and this whole hobby of his to impress a man. And I think that's one of the things about BL that I like is that if a woman said, oh, I only like hockey because my boyfriend likes hockey, or I only like hockey to impress a guy, I would think less of her. But for some reason, when it's a guy admitting that he developed his interests and his hobbies so that another guy would be within his proximity and in his vicinity so he could win his heart, there is something really romantic about that and less pick me. He just didn't lose his identity by doing something to get closer to this guy. He built an identity and it suited him very well. And now he coaches children and I find that really attractive. And he has a massive cock and your girl's a size queen. So that was really fun. So yes, Ian is the obvious choice here. And I think in season 2, he'll probably still be my delusional boyfriend. Unsun is very cute. Do not get me wrong. He is super handsome. And a lot of times characters who are the typical bottom in the story are drawn really effeminate. And I can love that. If they are really effeminate, like feminine features, especially in the Omegaverse, I'm totally here for that. That's my aesthetic. But sometimes they're just not drawn as hot as the other character. And that's the way of differentiating who would be like more manly. But in this one, they're both equally as hot, even though one is a lot taller. But Unsun is dressed constantly in office attire. So he's in like a button down and slacks and business shoes. And that in general is a little less attractive to me than somebody who's in sport sport attire. Also, Ian is constantly like lifting up his shirt for photo shoots and showing off his muscles, and he's super built. I will say his proportions are a little bit out of whack. Like his shoulders are way too big for his body, but that is what you get when you're reading Yaoi. And it's part of the culture. So I'm not mad about it. In fact, I think it's fun. And it is fun once in a while to see a panel where somebody's hands are way too big or feet are way too big, and just remember where you came from and where this community started. Ian, totally fucking hot. Unsun, totally fucking hot. But I do Ian's obsessive, possessive, one man only attitude. That's the kind of person that would be my boyfriend. And I would say for this year, we've gone over Painter of the Night and Jinx and Melting Point for our BL manhwa. And if I'm rating my delusional boyfriends from those three manhwa this year alone, Ryu Ian from Melting Point takes a cake. I love Jinx. And I totally loved Lord Sungho from Painter of the Night. They're both hotties, absolutely. But Ian is more green flag. He is more down bad. He doesn't have any of the toxic abuse that those two other characters have. And I'm not even like a green flag girly, but I just like him better. I think he's so hot. And when I tell you guys, I got to chapter 25 and started to crash out because I so badly didn't want the story to be over, and then jumped up. I got out of bed and was like, fuck yes. And my husband's, what are you doing? And I said, there's a season 2. I thought this was about to end. I was not ready for it to end, but there's a season 2. And I am so ready to see my man again this summer. So be ready for updates and follow-up episodes to this one, because Melting Point is immediately skyrocketing to the top of my favorites. For 2026, Ian is sitting in number 1 place for my delusional boyfriends, and I cannot wait to see how he holds up to other characters we have coming up this year. Of course, this is like our fandom favorites year, so we've got Dangerous Convenience Store with Aw Juicy, which is one of my favorite characters of all time. We also have Pearl Boy and Sacred Servant Seduction, and a lot of these big name stories. So Ian has some tough competition this year, but it'll be fun to see how he fares. He is a champion, so we'll see how he does. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to leave a comment and tell me who your delusional boyfriend from this story was and how Ian ranks amongst your all-time delusional boyfriends. And if you haven't, rate, review, and subscribe. If you can leave us like a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it helps the podcast so much. And if you turn on auto downloads, that also really helps us, and it makes sure that when we do drop a bonus follow-up episode for Melting Point when season 2 comes out, it will be automatically delivered to your library. And if you have a friend who loves BL, a Fujoshi Fudanshi bestie out there, make sure to tell them about the podcast and see if they'll become a listener and part of book club along with us. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you listeners so much. This podcast is a dream come true for me. And until next time, remember, sometimes the delusion is the solution. Bye.